Hello, welcome to another tutorial for Unreal Engine made easy. Let's go. In this video, we're going to create this fully functional basic obstacle course game from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5. We'll learn how to implement moving obstacles with collision physics, collectible coins, player UI, and a timer with a victory screen. We'll go through every step for implementing each part from start to finish so that by the end of this video, you can create everything here, even if you're a beginner. We'll use default content for a lot of this, but I have included download links for the assets that are included in this video, all of which are free. So if you'd like, you can use these same exact assets to follow along with the tutorial, or you can of course use some of your own. So we'll start with the third person template here. Go ahead and get that opened up and then we'll get started. All right, so the first thing we want to do here is change our character because otherwise we're just working with the default Manny or Quinn skeletal mesh, which is cool, but let's have a little more fun with it and add a custom character here, which is actually going to be really easy. So this is one of the links that I added in the description. This is free on the Epic Marketplace. So we're going to add that to our tutorial obstacle project here. Cartoon Young Boy rigged. And now we should see that should be in our content folder here. There we see it right there, Cartoon Young Boy. Perfect. So what we want to do is go ahead and open our third person folder here, blueprints, and then open our third person character. This is the player character. And so we want to customize our character mesh here. So we'll go to the viewport and we'll go to our mesh, open up that content drawer, go to that Cartoon Young Boy folder, and within the mesh here we can find the skeletal mesh, so we can just drag that easily right into here. Boom. And within the demo folder is the animation blueprint, which is ABP Cartoon Young Boy. So we can easily just see that right here, ABP Cartoon Young Boy. Apply that. There we go. Boom. Just like that. Let's test it out just to make sure. But yeah, just like that, we've got a custom character to make it a little more fun for our obstacle course game here. Boom. All right. So now, obviously, what we need are some obstacles. So let's go ahead and delete these blue cubes that are in the map here, because we're going to basically make our own, which are going to do things. So let's go ahead and make a new folder. Obstacles. Always good to stay organized in your project folder here. So within our obstacles, we're going to go blueprint class and actor blueprint. We'll name this one BP obstacle 1. Maybe because we'll have a couple different variations. So within our obstacle 1, we'll go ahead and add static mesh. Boom. And we'll just do cube, SM cube, and we can just change the material to that solid blue. All right, cool. So now we need to make this cube move around and essentially, push the player off of the course, basically, right? So how we're going to do that is with a timeline. So let's go ahead and do timeline. So we'll add a timeline here. We can name this TL obstacle push. Open that up. Let's go ahead and add a new track here. This one will be a float track, and we can name this location because this is going to determine the location of the cube obstacle. So we'll start by adding a key. First one's going to be at 0 time and 0 value. So starting off at 0, 0. Let's add another key. This one's going to be at time 1, value 1. And we can adjust these values in a little bit here once we kind of get a little look at how this is working. And we'll add a third key here, time 2, value 0. So then it goes back to 0. So goes up to 1, back to 0, and then has like a reset time. Also, don't forget to set it to looping because we want this to continually loop and continue to do the pushing movement. All right. So now that we have the timeline set up, we'll go ahead and we got to create a few variables here to work with in order to get this to work. So first of all, we're going to start with 2 vector variables, which is going to be starting location, vector variable, and another one for ending location. All right, cool. And then we're going to make a couple float variables as well. First one's going to be move distance. Once again, float variable. And then move duration, float variable. Okay, cool. So on begin play here, we'll go ahead and set the starting location. And this one's real simple because we can just go get actor location, which is automatically referencing self. So we can just tell it where we're at when we start is our starting location. And then next up, we want to set our ending location. So what we want to do to be able to get our ending location is, because we want to set it where the box is going to tell like where are we facing, wherever I'm pushing forward, that's the ending location. Pushing forward for X amount of distance, basically. So we'll get our static mesh, pull that reference into the graph here, and go get forward vector. And then from there, we want to multiply this. And we're going to multiply it by our move distance float variable. There we go. And then we want to add the result of this. We want to add that with our original location. Here we go. And then that's going to be the ending location. Perfect. All right. And then, so after that, we're going to go ahead and grab our component variable here for our timeline that automatically gets created whenever you make the timeline, like we did over here, TL obstacle push. And then we're going to go set play rate. And this will make it really easy for us to customize how the obstacle, you know, the velocity of how it's pushing, and the rate of the push animation that's going on and such. And then, so we're doing the play rate. Now we need to set the rate, obviously, right? So we're going to go ahead and take out our move duration, get our reference to that, divide, and plug this to the bottom. And we want to, because we want to go 1 divided by move duration. And that's going to be the new rate. All right, there we go. So then after that, we can go ahead and bring down our timeline, and we can go play from start. Now that we've set the starting location, ending location, and the play rate, now we can go ahead and play from start. So now we need to tell it a bit more information. So another thing we need to create here is another variable, which is going to be a Boolean variable, which will be resetting location, question mark. So this is going to determine whether basically it's pushing out or resetting the location, so it knows whether to go forward or backwards. So we're going to pull this out, get a branch, and so on the finished node here, we're going to check whether resetting location is true or false, and then we're going to go ahead and put a set on the true node and a set on the false node. So if it's coming out false, then we're going to go ahead and set it as true. If it's coming through true, then we're going to go ahead and set it to false. So this is every time the timeline finishes, it's going to basically change the Boolean from false to true or from true to false, indicating now switch the direction essentially. Perfect. So now we need to go, we're going to set actor location. So this is what's going to be happening. We'll plug this in on the update node here from the timeline. So from the update node from the timeline, what we're doing is updating the actor location, right? Along the timeline, we're saying, you know, this is where you need to be pushing out and then moving back. So how we're going to tell it where that new location needs to be is by utilizing our starting location and ending location vector variables. So we can go ahead and pull in references to those. So first of all, and then also a reference to our resetting location, just like this. So what we want to do is pull out from one of these and go select vector. So on the first one here, we're going to do ending location in A, starting location in B, and then plug in our Boolean variable into the pick A node here. And then we can go ahead and duplicate this. And then we're just going to swap these vectors. So starting location will be on A, ending location will be on B. And then still with our Boolean variable plugged into that portion. Okay, and then now that we have those two, we can go lerp vector. And we have our A and our B. from what we just did the calculations for starting location, ending location, and then this resetting location, because we set it up here, every time it finishes the timeline, it's going to switch basically which one of these is it picking, right? So then that's going to be the new location. And then the last thing we need to do is take our, so we made that float on the timeline, right? With those keys going, we put one on value, going from value 0 up to value 1 and then back to value 0. So our location right here is going to go ahead and plug into the alpha of this lerp right here. So as we're doing the linear interpolation between either the starting location to end location or end location to starting location based on the Boolean that we have set up here telling it which way is which, then it will go ahead and follow along the timeline location as we set it in the graph. So let's go ahead and compile and save here. And at this point, we should be able to see if this is working. So let's go ahead and drag in one of these obstacles into our course here. And let's move it so that, like I said, it should be shooting the forward vector as we set it up, which should be well, I guess we'll see. But anyways, sorry, one thing I forgot to mention here, we need to go back, is that we never set the values of our floats here for move distance and move duration. So let's go ahead and plug those in real quick before we forget. So move distance, we'll go ahead and set a value of, like, let's say 300, for example. And move duration, let's do 0.5, for like a half a second. All right, so let's see what happens here. Okay, awesome, look at that. There we go. Awesome, yeah, so, this, we can see that this will, shove the player. But we wanted to do a bit more than that, right? So we don't want it to just like shove the player. I think if it's pushing across like that, if we were on a course right here and we got pushed by the obstacle, rather than it just like sliding us off the ledge, I think we would want it to really kind of bounce us off the ledge, right? So we can see here we've got our movement behavior going, which is fantastic. And now all we need to do, if we want to play with, how this how fast it's moving and how fast it resets and whatever else, all we need to do is adjust these float variables for move distance and move duration. We could also go back into the timeline and adjust some of these. For example, our second node here, we could move it up a little bit, maybe say instead of a value, and the value stays at 1, but at the time of 0.7 instead of 1. So that way it reaches that value quicker, right? So we get a more sharp push out motion. So if we change that, let's see how it looks now. So it looks like it's doing a little more, it has a little more velocity on the push now. Okay, so that's good. And another thing that we want to adjust is, as we can see, it also blocks the camera. So we don't want to, it's good that it's blocking the player, but we don't want it to block the camera necessarily, right? So let's go to the static mesh of our cube here. Let's go to collision and drop down our collision presets here, and let's just click custom, and we can just do ignore on camera, and visibility is fine. All right, cool. All right, so like I said, we instead of just having the box just push the player, we want it to really kind of like bounce the player, right? So how we're going to achieve that, let's go back to our obstacle blueprint here, into the viewport, to our static mesh, and let's go ahead and add a box collision. All right, and we'll name this box collision so it's a little clearer what it is. All right, so we want to put this on, I believe the forward vector is going to be where the red pin is facing, right? So we want to put this on that side. So we want to put this just on the one side. I don't think we want to bounce the player if they're hitting the other sides of the cube. But if they hit the side that's being pushed towards them, then that's where I think we want the collision to happen. So we'll just go ahead and make this like a thin box like that, and then just kind of lay it into this one side of our box here. We can just scale it up 1.5 or 1.4 looks pretty good, and then kind of get it like centered a little bit like that. There we go. I think that's looking like it's in a pretty decent location. Just make sure it's just like right on the edge there. Okay, good. And let's go ahead and double check our collision presets for this one as well on our box collision that we're adding here. And so overlap all dynamic, no. So what we want to do is ignore all, and we only want to overlap pawn. We don't want this obstacle collision to trigger anything unless it interacts with the player character, which is the pawn, which will essentially be the only pawn in the game unless you end up adding more, in which case you could add a custom trace channel or whatever. But for now, we'll just do pawn only on overlap. Generate overlap events should automatically be checked since this is a collision box, and make sure that collision enabled is at least on query only. All right, so that's looking good. So now we can, while we're looking at the details of our box collision here, if we scroll down, there's an event that we can utilize right here called on component begin overlap. So we'll go ahead and add that into our graph here. Cool. So when this thing detects an overlap, which since we set the collision presets to only overlap on with another pawn, which would essentially only be the player character, we know that the other actor is going to be the player character. So, and we're going to need to utilize a node that's only available for if the reference is a character. So for example, we want the launch character node, and you notice if we pull out from other actor, we're not able to access that because this is a actor reference, not a character reference. So what we can do here is just very easily go cast to BP third person character, which is our third person playable character unit that we just set up with the custom mesh and whatnot. So all right, cool. So now if we pull off from there and we go launch character, now you see now we have access to that node. Perfect. So once again, we'll do just a little bit of math here. So we will get our reference to our static mesh again and get forward vector. Once again, we're detecting like which way are we pushing, right? And we'll go multiply, and we want to multiply this by, we're going to make one more float variable for push strength float variable here, and we'll plug that in right here. And before we forget to set that default value this time, let's go ahead and just set one right here. I found that, and these are all values that, once again, as if you create this on your own, you can just come in here and like I showed, you can play with how the timeline is set up. You can go ahead and adjust these, the move distance, the duration, the push strength, all that to kind of customize how the object will interact with the player and how fast it moves and all that kind of stuff. Okay, cool. So we're multiplying the forward vector by how much the push strength that we want to apply to it, which we set at 1500 for now. And then we're just going to add to that a simple height. So we want to, right now it's just going to push the character, literally just forward, like on a horizontal. But if we want it to have like a little bit of a bounce effect, then we also want to add a little bit of height to it. So let's do, I don't know, like 200 additional to the z-axis, for example. And then that's going to be our launch velocity. And then make sure to do XY override. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead now and test that. Okay, cool. Yeah, because we know the box is pushing this way to the left like this, right? So we can see that we got the collision box right here on the correct side. So now we can easily identify which is the front side as well. And, if you customize these boxes with, your own custom materials or a custom box mesh or whatever it is, of course, you can, put something on the front side to make it more obvious that, like, this is the side that's going to push you off or whatever, right? But for now, we're just kind of creating it and making it work. Real quick, I would like to increase the size of the box as well. It's a little bit small. We don't need to go to the blueprint for that. We can just do that right here in the editor. Let's just double the size. Cool. All right, so let's see if we get hit by this. Boom. See how it kind of bounces us now instead of just shoving us? Now if we get hit by this, it's going to bounce us. So if we collide with other sides of this block, we're not going to get that behavior, which is cool. But say, this was the course and we're crossing the course, and then this thing hits you, and then boom, you get, you're not just going to get shoved off, you're going to get bounced off. So it gives it more of like a fun cartoony effect as well. So that's looking good. Definitely like that. All right, cool. So we have basically, we have a basic obstacle here now that we can duplicate and customize and utilize in more areas, in other ways as well. For example, we could widen it, or change the shape, or, there's a bunch of different things, change which way it's moving, etc., etc. For now, we're just going to keep them kind of basic. This is just, meant to be kind of a starting point for you to utilize. Let's add one more obstacle for us to utilize here. So we'll go duplicate on this guy, and we'll go obstacle 2 and open this one up here. And I'm thinking this one, we could it could be cool to have one that just kind of moves around, like say there's a gap in the course, and then you have like a floating block that kind of just moves back and forth that you have to jump on top of to make it across. So for this one, we don't want any launching behavior basically, so we can just go ahead and take this and delete that. Matter of fact, we can just go ahead and delete the entire box collision on this one. And all we need to do is basically adjust our timeline and our variables for move distance and move duration and all that. So this will give you an idea of how easy it would be to customize the obstacle and kind of turn it into something else. So maybe let's make it move a little slower, so it's not going to be so hard to jump on. Actually, we can keep that at the same rate for now, but let's go open up our timeline graph. And what we want to do is we want to make these even now. So let's just make the length 2, and this one will be 1. So it goes from 0 up to 1, back to 0, all at even at an even rate. So it should just move left to right at an even rate basically now, right? And all we would need to do is adjust the move duration and the move distance. So let's see if we're getting the correct behavior here. Cool. Yeah, so we can see this one. Yeah, we probably want to slow it down. So let's do, like I said, move duration. Let's double that up to 1, for example, from 0.5. All right, see, now it's moving. So now it's more reasonable for, the player to be able to jump on it if this was something that we needed to get across, right? And we can make it a little bigger as well, of course. All right, cool. So we have a couple obstacles here. Let's go ahead and just make a quick little course, just an example course here. So let's just grab one of these guys right here. Let's pull this out, rotate it, and rotate it. I guess we can just leave it right here. Okay, we'll just kind of line this up right here. So we're just making like a, little bridge across kind of thing. Let's take this ramp right here, duplicate the ramp, pull it over. Let's extend it up. Maybe we can add another one. All right, cool. Should be good enough. And now let's just place a couple of our obstacles here. So obstacle 1 was the one that we know is gonna move and bounce the player off so we can see here's our collision side right here. Let's double the size, for example. And maybe start it something like that. And then, oh yeah, let's go ahead and cut our bridge like in half. Cool. Yep, that's fine. And then we'll put this guy right here. Maybe 1.5, for example. And we can just delete this stuff below so it's more obvious if we fall. All right, there we go. And does that start? Oh yeah, let's rotate this. There we go. All right, cool. So if we run up here, all right, now we have basically a little obstacle course, as we can see. So if we got to get past this thing, otherwise if we get hit by it, we get bounced off, right? And so say we are able to run past this part, and now we gotta jump onto this thing and make it across, right? Something like that. So we've already, as you can see, we're already getting a custom little obstacle course going here. Let's line this up so it's not glitching out. There we go. Cool. So yeah, that's looking pretty good so far, to be honest. Now let's add like a little more objective for the player. Let's add like some coins that they can pick up, and then we're going to add some basic UI, and then we'll add like a finish line and a little victory screen and stuff, and then you guys will see how you can, you know, essentially apply this in your own way. But first of all, I would like to also show how we can maybe adjust, you know, you can see when they jump, it's a little, you know, they kind of float around a little bit. I felt like it was a little weird jumping onto that, you know, middle obstacle. So let's just real quick take a look at our character here, go to the character movement. And what we want to do is take a look at gravity. So the gravity scale, you know, we can turn this up maybe slightly, you know, up to, I don't know, 1.9, for example. Another thing is we could go to max acceleration. Maybe let's go ahead and like double this. Not 3,300, not 300, up to 3,000. Double that. And then we can go ahead and look at braking friction. We can turn this up, I don't know, maybe to like 3, for example. Let's go ahead and see what difference that makes. Yeah, this feels a lot more responsive in my opinion, and makes more sense for the character jumping around and jumping across and actually landing in the correct spot and stuff like that. So I just wanted to show real quick there how you can quickly go to your character into the movement component and just look for those 3 things: the gravity, max acceleration, and braking friction. There's of course other things that you can customize too or whatever, but you know, I just wanted to show you how you can just real quick adjust those couple things, and you know, it'll make a pretty noticeable difference. If you're doing this on your own and playing it for yourself, you'll definitely notice the difference. All right, cool. So now that we've got a little starting course here, we can go ahead and add some coins for the player to pick up, make it a little more fun. So next, let's go ahead and add a new folder for coins. All right, so in our coins folder, we'll go ahead and add a new blueprint class, actor, and this one will be BP coin. And we can open this up, and we're going to add a static mesh for our coin. And then for what we're going to use for the static mesh here is an asset. Once again, this has been included in the description, link description, all free assets here. And I'm just using the GLB files here. We'll go import. So just like that, we have a stylized coin mesh here that we can apply to the static mesh. Boom. All right, cool. Just for a little perspective, let's drag this into the map here and see the size. I mean, the size looks fine right now. I don't think we really need to adjust it. That looks cool. I'm happy with that, to be honest. All right, and then let's add a sphere collision, because this is how we're going to set up the behavior, the logic for if the player interacts, moves over the coin, then the player will receive the coin, receive the currency, or receive the value of the coin. So we'll just make this a little smaller so that it's basically just where the player has to touch the coin in order to get it, right? Sphere collision, good. And then same thing, let's go to our collision presets, and just like we did before with the box one, we'll go custom and put it on ignore all other than pawn. We only are wanting to overlap with pawn. All of these objects should only interact with the player character, right? And once again, generate overlap events should be checked automatically, and collision should be enabled automatically as well. Boom. So now, same thing, we'll go just like we did before, on component begin overlap, because like we just said it, we're detecting the overlap with our player character. So before we set up our overlap event here, we first need to set up a coin value somewhere. So we'll go ahead and set that up in our player character. What we're going to do is let's go to our player character blueprint in the content folder, and we're going to add an actor component here. So this is going to be component player character. Let's go ahead and open this up real quick, and we're going to add a variable here, coin amount, and make that a float. It can be an integer or a float. We'll just make it a float, usually more compatible with some of the nodes. And then real quick, back to our third person player character. We'll go ahead and add that component player character. All right, cool. So now we have attached this actor component to our player character, which will store our coin amount. And it'll be easy to access, and it'll be available at all times and all that. So back to our coin blueprint here that we just created, the mesh with the sphere collision. And now we have our event for on begin overlap with that sphere collision. Now what we're going to do is the other actor we know is going to be our player character, is going to be the one that's overlapping here, right? So we can go get component by class. Let me go component player character, the one that we attached. And now we'll have access to coin amount. So we can get coin amount, add 1, right? Because if we if the player interacts with this coin, they're going to gain 1 coin. And then we'll go set coin amount, and that's going to be the value that we're setting. So when the player overlaps with this, they're going to gain 1 coin. And then after that, what we're going to do is destroy actor. So then the coin gets destroyed. So the player gets the coin value, and then the coin gets destroyed. So obviously we're not going to be able to see the coin amount yet until we set up the UI. But what we can do is test and just make sure that if we see the coin getting destroyed when we overlap with it, then we know it's working. And we can see that it's working. Perfect. And just to make this even a little bit more fun, we can add in, once again, I have included this in the asset link in the description. We have a fun little coin noise here that everybody loves. So when we when the player picks up the coin, before we destroy actor, we can play sound 2D and plug in our coin received sound. And we can just put this on, we don't need it to be that loud. So we'll just turn that down to like 0.2, for example. And I would also, I think it's a little bit, we could make it floating a little bit higher off the ground, I think. So let's go ahead and add a little bit to the Z location here. Maybe up 50 or so. That should probably be pretty cool. All right, nice. There we go. So let's see if we run into this, if we hear the coin sound and it gets destroyed. There we go. All right, everyone's favorite coin sound, huh? Who doesn't like that? All right, cool. So now there's player objectives that we can add to the course, right? So on our course here, we can go ahead and just add a couple coins, right? Cool. So yeah, if the player is able to, get through the course, and they also are racking up coins. So once again, we're not creating anything, too crazy here. We're just kind of having fun with, seeing how we can set up the obstacles and how they work and how you guys can, do this on your own and whatnot. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and just do a quick test just to make sure everything's still running good. Cool, we can't go across that when it's there. We can get our coin, jump onto this, get our other coin. Nice, let's make sure cool. And similarly, let's make it a little more fun when the player gets knocked by this obstacle, the one that's doing the pushing, obstacle 1. Let's go back to our event graph here. And when we do the overlap and when the player gets launched, let's also go play sound 2D. And once again, we have another audio asset. We'll go to our obstacles right here and we'll pull in this one right here, pop cartoon, plug that in. Once again, doesn't need to be very loud, but let's just go ahead and see how that sounds. If we get hit by this, yeah, cool. So we get a little, little audio representation of the player, getting knocked or picking up the coins or whatever it is. Nice. All right. So things are coming along quite well already. Last thing we're going to do is add a basic UI so we can tell the player how many coins they've picked up, and they can see how many coins they have as they're going through the course. And then we're also going to add a timer so then the player can see, what's my best time, what's the most amount of coins I've got in on this course, kind of thing, right? So we'll go ahead and go to our content browser, create a new folder, widgets, and of course always staying as organized as possible. And we're going to go user interface, widget blueprint, user widget, and we can just name this widget main UI, basically. That's fine. All right, so first thing we're going to do on our main UI widget here is add a canvas panel. Go ahead and add that right there, boom. All right, so we want let's do a horizontal box. And we can place this, let's put it down kind of in the middle, down center area, should be fine. And within the horizontal box, we want an image and text. And this will be for our coin count. So for our image, once again, I'll open up the assets folder with the assets that I've provided here. We have a star image coin for the UI, star coin image for the UI, and a fun font that we can use. So we'll drag both of those in here. Yes. All right, cool. So for our image, we can go ahead and open up the brush category and use this texture, plug it in there. And image size, let's make it something a little more reasonable. Something like 50-50, and put this like middle. And then also we'll go to our horizontal box and we'll click size to content. That way the images don't get skewed or anything. Okay, cool. And then we'll go to our text block. Same thing, put that in the middle area. Let's add a little bit of padding on the left, so it's not right next to the image. Text block. Let's just put 0 here because it's going to be a number, but we're going to bind this to our coin number here so it dynamically updates on the UI. First though, let's customize our font. So the font that we brought in was called Zany, which is right here. So we can just go ahead and click that one, and it makes it look a little more fun, and we can increase the size, for example. That's cool. All right, and then so now for the text, like I said, we want this number to be dynamically updating with how many coins the player has. So we'll click bind here and go create binding. Okay. Now, all we need to do in order to get the amount of coins is because we know that the player is, if we do get player pawn, that's going to get our third person character blueprint because that is the player pawn. And we know that we have our get component by class because we know that we have our attached component player character, and we know that within there is our coin amount. So we just get our coin amount and plug that in. There we go. Okay, so just like that, we should be set as far as like seeing the coins amount on the UI. So what we need to do is now just make sure that this widget gets created and added to the viewport when we begin play. So let's go to our third person character blueprint, and we're going to, on the begin play here, we'll add on to this, and we'll go create widget, and we'll do widget main UI, which is the one that we just created, and we'll go add to viewport. And we'll also drag out from this and do promote to variable main UI, and because we'll want to reference to this for later when we implement our victory screen. All right, so now let's go ahead and test. We should see that UI on our screen now, and let's just drag in a couple other coins into the level here as well, so that we can see. We can see if we pick them up, if they get added to the, if the number gets updated on the UI. All right, let's go ahead and test this out. So we can see there on the UI now we have our coin image and the number. Let's see if the number updates dynamically correctly. We go 1, 2, 3. All right, looking good. Oh, we got knocked. We got to run back up and start over again. Oh no, our speed run. All right, here we go. 4. See if we can make it across. 5. All right, there we go. So yeah, we can see everything is working with our coin UI. And now, like I said, let's take it one step further and add a timer for the player to see to make it even a little more exciting for they can, you know, if they want to do a speed run or, you know, show what's your best time on this course or whatever, right? So let's go ahead and move this one maybe like on the top middle. And once again, this is going to be a timer number. Size content, and it's going to basically be like in this format, I think, so we can know where the middle portion will be. So like that. And then once again, we can put in our zany font to make it a little more fun. Increase the size if we wish. You know, this is all, of course, up to you, however you want to customize this, you know, how it looks on the UI and whatnot, of course. Cool, so we got it centered, all looking good. So now we're going to bind our the text here so it updates dynamically with a timer. So first of all, we're going to add a variable, which is going to be a float variable for time. Float variable. So as we're updating this, we need to, every time this is updating, we're going to be updating our time variable. We'll drag in a get reference to the time, and we want to add, and we're going to add get world delta seconds. Boom, and plug that into what we're setting the time as. Okay, and then after that, after we've set our time, then we'll get our time and say time seconds to string. So this is going to print out like a timer value as a text, basically, and then we can plug that in here and it'll automatically convert it to the text value that we need. Compile, save. Let's go ahead and test this out. Cool, boom. Now we can see that there is a timer up on the top, so it's you know, easy to see if the for the player to see how fast am I getting through this run. You know, oh my gosh, my speed run, yada yada yada. Oh no, I fell. My speed run's over. Right? Fun times. Cool. So there we go, guys. Everything is looking pretty good. Once again, you can expand on all this however you'd like. And then last thing I would like us to do is create like a finish line and a victory screen. So you can't have any game needs to have a victory condition, right? And celebration. So we'll go to our content here, and we'll add a finish line. And last but not least, to our assets folder here, we have a finish line model that we can go ahead and pull in. And it's important to remember whenever you're bringing in these models with the GLB files, it's very important to remember to click this option right here, combine static meshes. Otherwise, you're going to just get a bunch of different, you're going to get all the different parts that are not put together. I do highly recommend using the GLB files because it's a much easier to work with than the FBX. Everything's included just in one file. But you got to remember to click this, otherwise you might be confused, like why is the item not actually constructed. So import that. And you can see we got a cool little finish line here. And let's go ahead and we're going to make an actor blueprint for this. We'll go actor BP finish line. Okay, open that up, add a static mesh. Okay, and then we're going to set our static mesh as that finish line. Very good. And we want to go to the collision here. And we don't want, right now it's going to be on block all dynamic, like most items will be on block all dynamic, but we don't want this to block the character because this, we want them to be able to walk through this, so we don't want it to block them. So we'll go no collision. All right, and then we're going to add a box collision to this. And similarly, like we did before, we're just going to add an area that detects when the player, before we close that collision thing, just like we've done with all the other box collision events that we're creating. We're going to go custom, ignore all except for pawn, same as we've done before. Generate overlap events, good. Collision enable, good. All right, so let's go ahead and just adjust the sizing of this thing here to basically just, be within the archway. So if the player runs through this archway, then it's going to register you've crossed the finish line. Cool, that looks good. So we'll go scroll down again and find our event on component begin overlap. Excellent. Now, on component begin overlap, so what we want to do here is trigger an event which will create a victory screen and then destroy the old one. So before we do that, let's go ahead and create our victory screen. So we're going to go back to our widgets, get our widget main UI, and we're going to go duplicate, and this one's going to be victory UI. Let's open up our victory UI here. And we just want to change a couple things. There's not much we have to change. The coin value will stay the same because when this victory screen pops up, we're going to disable player input further. So whatever coins they have will be the same amount. So that doesn't need to change because we're getting that value dynamically from the actor component that we have attached to the player controller, same way. So that's all good. But the timer will continue to tick. So we need to disable this, remove the binding. Okay. And this is just going to be set one time through the event that we're going to create within the player character, which will populate this main UI. So in order to do that, what we need to do is go to our graph, and the time variable here that we we created in the other one, which got copied over, we're going to do expose on spawn. Instance editable will also need to be clicked with that to make expose on spawn work. So click both of those. So this way, whenever we create this victory widget, it will have an input pin for what is the time. So we can transfer over what was the time when we trigger this overlap event and just feed it into here. This was the time, and that way it's not continuing to tick further, and it's just this was your time when you finished the match, essentially, right? Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and create this event. So what we're going to do is go to our third person folder here, blueprint and blueprint interface. We're going to add interface player character. So we're just going to quickly make a blueprint interface to trigger the victory function. So victory event. Okay, easy as that. We'll go back to our third person character blueprint, go to the class settings, and we'll go ahead and add this interface here. Interface player, I misspelled that, interface player character. There we go. Add that. All right, and then now we'll have access to that event. So we'll go ahead and go victory event. So whenever this gets triggered, we will get our reference to the main UI, which we created earlier on the begin player. Remember, we added this and we created main UI, added to the viewport, and then we made our reference to main UI. So we're taking our main UI reference right here, and we're just going to go ahead and do remove from parent. And this essentially deletes the, takes away the UI. This UI will no longer be on the player screen. And then from our main UI, we'll have access to the time variable, which we created within our main UI, which is driving the timer number, remember? And then we'll go create widget victory UI. And as we can see, since we did expose on spawn with our time variable, we can just plug this in right there. So now we're telling it this was the time when the game ended. That's what we're going to set the time as. And then we'll go add to viewport. Okay, and then, like I said, we'll disable gameplay further from that point. So we'll go get player controller, and we'll go set input mode UI only. All right, and then we're also going to check this one right here for flush input, because, for example, if we're running into the finish line and then the game ends and it brings this up and sets it to UI only, then the character is just going to endlessly continue to run forward. So we're going to end that input command that they were receiving, aka the run command, and so they'll stop moving and the game will end, essentially. So flush input. Okay, cool. So now that we know that we're feeding in this time variable into our victory widget, we can go to our victory widget, and when we do when we construct this, we'll get our text here first of all real quick. Let's go to our, this is our text for the timer text. So we're going to go timer text. We're going to name it properly and go is variable, yes. Now that we have that set up, we can go to the graph and we'll have access to this variable timer text. So we'll go set text right here, set text, boom, and we have our time. We just plug in our time variable because we know that's being fed into the fed into here when we're creating this widget. Okay. So yeah, honestly, that should be everything. Let's go ahead and test it out. Last thing we need to do is add that finish line right here. Cool. Let's add this into our level. Maybe the little, oops, didn't mean to make it that small. Maybe a little, there we go, something like that. Boom. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and test this out. Hopefully I don't fail the course here. All right. First of all, let's gather these coins. Gotta get our coins, right? All right, run past this obstacle. Boom. Make sure we time this right. Boom. Oh, and as we can see, we forgot to we got to go back to our to our finish line blueprint. Let's open that back up, blueprint finish line. And because we never added what we want to do on the overlap, so that's the last thing we need to do here. So we set up that interface event right here, event victory event. So we know other actor is going to be the player character. So victory event message. There we go. And by the way, if you're wondering about more information on using interface events or actor components, anything like that, I have specific guides for that here on my channel. So definitely feel free to check those out as well. All right, now that we've got that set up and we're calling the events upon the overlap, let's run our course. Oh, I noticed that we have a little issue here with the coins. They seem to be causing the player to get obstructed. I'm pretty sure we got the sphere collision set up correctly, but I think we forgot on the actual static mesh of the coin. We'll go to collision. And we want to actually set this to no collision, because the player should be able to run through the coins and just hit the sphere collision and trigger the coin pickup mechanic. So that should be working much smoother now. Forgot to mention that earlier. All right, let's run our course here. Everything should be working good. Let's get our coins. There we go. No collision issues there. Everything's nice and smooth now. Let's make sure we don't get hit by this. Nice. All right, don't miss this jump. Oh, barely. Here we go, the finish line. There we go. So we can see it's showing us our final time, the amount of coins we had. And to make it, I guess, a little more clear, you know, we could go to our victory UI here. And let's add a text to the canvas panel. Or not a slider, I accidentally pulled in a slider. We want a text into the canvas panel. And let's just put this in the middle. Okay, cool. Let's write in victory. Okay, and we'll make it our fun zany font. Make it big, so it's exciting. And we'll just kind of, you know, center it a little bit. There we go. And let's also make it even a little more fun by go play sound 2D. And once again, we have little audio for us to use here. This cute level up noise, for example, you know, and once again, you can, you know, of course, use whatever you want for any of these noises, any of these values, etc. Just showing you how to make all of this work. All right, this is our final run through here. We're going to run our obstacle course and everything should be working exactly how we want it. We should get our victory screen, a little victory sound and everything. So let's get our coins. 1, 2, 3. Let's see if we can get a personal best time here. We're running. Oh, there we go. It just went. Boom. Jump. Oh, we barely made it. Jump across. Here we go. Boom. There we go. We got our little victory noise. We can see victory. We see the amount of coins we had. We saw our time. We finished in 14.5 seconds. So yeah, awesome. We're pretty much done here, guys. Now, you know, you can use this as a starting point for your own projects. And, you know, I really hope this tutorial walkthrough was helpful for you and, you know, maybe you had some fun along the way. Thanks for watching this video. Feel free to let me know in the comments below if you have any feedback or questions. And check out my channel here for more tutorials, tips, and information on Unreal Engine made easy. See you in the next one. Thanks. Peace.